Welcome all of you to the Intacct presentation, Collaborate. I am David Caldwell, specializing in Intacct, and I have with me Wes Salisbury, who's a systems engineer with me here at Maynard Casterison that also is involved with porting as well as implementation of the Intacct software. Today's kind of an exciting day. We're going to be talking about Intacct Collaborate. This is something of a new feature, a new tool that Intacct has brought into the system and made available to all who are using Intacct at no extra charge. This tool is quite an unbelievable tool, an idea that they've implemented to really eliminate a lot of inefficiencies that oftentimes occur in finance and accounting departments and improves communication. So we have an awful lot to show you today, an awful lot to talk to you today. We hope you find this as fascinating as we do, and a tool that certainly will be valuable in the use of this in your organization. So let's get started. First of all, what in the heck is Intacct Collaborate? What is that? Well, again, it's a tool within Intacct. It was designed primarily to speed up internal communications, primarily as it relates to the use of Intacct. It allows you to share information across users within Intacct. Any user that is set up within Intacct, regardless of the user type, can participate in collaboration, this type of social media tool, and allows you to eliminate, in some regards, what otherwise was having to be completed through email, and some of the slowness that occurs in terms of using email and getting communication sped up among all of you while you're using the system in the event that there are questions or concerns as you are going through and inputting data. It saves you an awful lot of time in handling things like exceptions, especially when it comes to documents and asking for clarifications. I'm sure there's come a time where certain invoices that have been entered into the payable system where one individual may have a question or two about the invoice itself, whether or not what was purchased, the amount, or perhaps maybe discounts that should have been earned because of who you are as a company and who you're doing business with. Sometimes those get overlooked. Sometimes those kind of conversations never take place. So Intacct helps to try to mitigate that loss of connectivity between individuals and tries to improve upon efficiencies and making sure that the right kind of communications take place all throughout the organization. A lot of insights, a way of proposing new ideas. So it kind of transcends just accounting altogether, but it also opens up other types of communication that can take place while using the Collaborate system. So in one of the last things, and I think this is more philosophical in nature, but it tears down communication barriers. So, you think about perhaps people who are working within your accounting department using Intacct, or people who have access to Intacct, albeit whether or not it's reports, whether or not it's inquiries, recipients of information, and those people being identified as users. And how do you communicate with them? It's maybe not enough just to simply give them access to the system and hope they get by and hope they understand how to use and what they need to do in order to use the system correctly. But the data that they're entering in, questions that they may have. Do we post? Do we not post? Is this correct general ledger date that we're going to post to? Am I following the correct procedure through the purchase ordering process? And what about this purchase order that we received from the XYZ vendor who's charging us a little more than what we anticipated? How do we want to handle that? Just consider about all those types of questions that come up along the way while you're attempting to use the system, get the accounting mission completed, and getting it done in an accurate and the most efficient and economical way. All right, the old style of communicating around an ERP system was using email. And what I want to try to identify here is, where are those snags while we use the email system in regard to trying to complete our work? So the question now comes down to, with all the different types of social media that's available, how often do you use email? How often do you look at it? And then if is someone trying to get in touch with you to get a question answered before they post the batch, before they print invoices, before they send the electronic fund transfer to the bank, perhaps there's some questions, and we certainly don't want to hold up, especially when it comes to making payments out of the systems, and especially when it comes time to getting reports out at month end. So email, we found that There's oftentimes misunderstandings that leads to more discussion, and that leads to more emails moving back and forth. So for example, how about we increase the credit limit on a customer? And the next question that comes out will give us a good business reason why we're going to do that. Can you imagine what kind of emailing would need to take place in order to get that kind of thing done? How about incorrectly tagged documents? So, as an example, wrong dimension is chosen. Someone's caught it, and are we going to the correct dimension in terms of the distribution to the GL? Or here's an example. The purchase order looks like it's for office supplies and not the capital equipment. Perhaps before we receive on that PO, before we invoice it, perhaps we need to get corrected what it is we're exactly buying. How are we going to communicate that to those individuals who are responsible for inputting that data? Ambiguities that need to be clarified. Draft journal entry versus should we post it? Customer says we paid when actually we didn't receive the payment. Where is all that communication getting lost, and especially when it comes to email? Email has certainly served its purpose and has done well at serving its purpose, but we're living in a very fast-paced society, and especially when it comes time to reporting, entering in data, and getting data back out of the system, email has, at least what we have witnessed, has slowed that process down. So how can we keep the snags from slowing down? Well, Intacct obviously is our mission here in order to try to meet with those objectives. So again, you can think of it as a social collaboration tool. It is built off of a customer relationship management system by the name of Salesforce. So Salesforce is a competitor with Microsoft CRM. There's also Sugar. You may have heard of Sugar. All of those are very high quality customer relationship management programs of which we keep track of communications with our clientele customers as well as across other parts of the organization. So the Salesforce program, in a sense, has been extended into the Intacct program, in which now they've dubbed that called Collaborate. Okay, so Collaborate, what some of the benefits here? So it eliminates back and forth emails about transactions, as an example. It allows individuals to collaborate without leaving their everyday application. Provides complete picture during conversation and context communication, as, of course, as communication in the written form will allow. It tracks changes to key information. So could you imagine having a dialogue about a certain invoice that's inside of the accounts payable system and whether or not it gets paid? Email does not attach itself to documents, but could you imagine that dialogue attaching and seeing that dialogue attached to the document so that you could go back and review and have a historical perspective on why that invoice was processed the way it was? So that next bullet point there having to do is capturing dialogue for decisions later is exactly what I'm talking about. And then, of course, I mentioned the Salesforce chatter embedded inside of Intacct. All right, so continuing on with the benefits, we look at the Collaborate program to increase speed and efficiency across finance and the accounting processes. One of the other things is that especially if you do own the Salesforce, then it allows you to connect salespeople who might be using that method of communication back into the Intacct program where finance spends most of its time. So there is that bridge that can be created, and I'll have a few more words to say about that a little bit later. And by the way, I mentioned this a little earlier, Collaborate comes to you at no extra charge. All you need to do is just turn it on. So as an example is faster execution, closing, and auditing. Here is an example of a communication thread that is inside of Intacct that took place among these individuals that you see listed there in the slide. And you can see some of the dialogue that's taking place here, but the collaboration was around a proposed journal entry as whether or not it needs to be posted, whether or not it remains in draft form. And then it gets into projected revenue, and you can see and just read some of the dialogue that's going on here. But the whole intent is that it attempts to try to resolve questions and eliminate communication timing gaps. All right, so let's talk about some examples of its use. Here's one example. The current approach to resolving snags is broken. So here's a journal entry. And for those of you who spend time in the general ledger, this screen should look familiar to you. This is a typical journal entry screen with the normal buttons that are above that. And if you'll notice, that the journal entry is in draft form. So draft form means that it hasn't been posted, it's not committed to the system, it therefore is not part of the overall balances that would be affecting the chart of accounts, and also therefore would not be part of the reports that would get churned out. So the question is that's in draft form, and why? So goes the dialogue between the controller and the accounting manager, and this is what it looks like as email would be going back and forth based on this problem that is facing the accounting department. They notice the problem, the JE entry and the amount is in draft form, it hasn't been posted, so why not? We're at month end. So the controller copies the journal entry and the amount and pastes it into an email and sends it to the accounting manager. Okay? The next thing that happens is that the accounting manager spots the email in the inbox, opens it, and replies to the email and notes the general journal entry. So in other words, making aware that he's aware of it, but he's going to investigate it. So the next thing is that the accounting manager logs into Intacct, finds the journal entry, and assesses and fixes the issue. So perhaps it wasn't intended to be in draft form, perhaps it was intended to be posted. So the next thing is that the accounting manager then goes back to the email, finds the original, and then replies to the controller. Following that, the controller then spots the email sent to him or her from the accounting manager and now has assurance that the issue is fixed. Now this is just a small example of oftentimes what takes place in an organization as it is in regard to using an ERP accounting system when issues arise and how we resolve those issues as we go through the day-to-day use of the accounting system. So how would that be any different if we were to take a look and use Collaborate in regard to this issue as opposed to using email? So you notice the swapping back and forth the email system is noted there, spots and so forth. So you'll notice down and underneath the journal entry screen there is what we'll refer to the eminence of Intacct showing. And this is where we would begin to see dialogue appear about this particular journal entry that is occurring between the controller and the accounting manager. So I'm just going to slip through here. So the controller actually uses the Collaborate and sends to James Taylor, who is the accounting manager, the journal entry from last month is still in draft state. Should we have posted it? Okay. So the next thing that happens is that is now part of the record of the journal entry and will remain there permanently until it could be later removed. So this is all part of your review should you go back in and do a query and investigate what's going on with this particular journal entry. So the next thing is that the accounting manager, James Taylor, is in his collaboration center and notices that he has this note that was sent to him from the controller asking him about that. And then, of course, what begins thereafter is communication back and forth between these two, and which never ever had they had to leave email and check back and forth. This is all coming through each one of their systems. And all of this dialogue is connected and copied to the journal entry, regardless of the state of the journal entry in draft form or posted form. Okay? All right. The next example that's coming up here on the screen has to do with connecting sales and finance. So you remember I was saying a little bit earlier that given a CRM package, a customer relationship management package called Salesforce, and how it connects and how it manifests itself into Intacct. Now, many of you, if not all of you who are attending today's session, do not own Salesforce, but should you decide to add that to your organization, one is that you'll see some of the connectivity here that is between the use of that program in Intacct and how sales, who oftentimes will never be into the accounting system, Intacct, but use the CRM system in terms of quoting, and needing the ability of sending their quotes on into the Intacct system and making sure that the communications about those quotes or orders that the sales team is generating are making their way into Intacct, and that all communications and questions having to do with those quotes and orders are being answered by the finance team. So these next set of slides kind of demonstrate or give you some insight as to what that kind of thing looks like here. So what you're looking at is Salesforce here. And this is an example of an individual who's a salesperson by the name of Tony McKenzie, who is a finance manager, is communicating from Intech back to the sales team here about certain orders. So this kind of communication is going on, and all this communication that has originated at the Salesforce level as well as at the Intech level is all being accumulated here, both in Salesforce as well as Intech, so that there's a dialogue and a copy of that dialogue being kept in the system for reference purposes in the future. Okay? So again, this is just another example of how these two systems can work together. Collaborate, again, is a portion of Salesforce at work in your system that come to you at no charge. Okay? So again, I'm just running through these slides that really show how that communication manifests itself in those two systems. The other example that I have is having to do with metrics. And some of you may be using the dashboard feature inside of Intech. Maybe some of you are preparing, or some of you have not just yet gotten to that point yet. But on the dashboards, for those of you that are using them or thinking about using them, what about information that you have on your dashboard that you would like to communicate to others in your organization who may not be seeing the same kind of information on their dashboard, or perhaps they may not have a dashboard that really would like to see it in order to make decisions off of, or at least stay informed? Can we add Collaborate and all of the dialogue belonging to an individual on the dashboard and have it visible? And the answer to that question, yes. But we can take it one step further, and that we have the ability of taking what we see on the dashboard and taking snapshots of it and communicating that along with our textual communication to others in the organization through Collaborate. So these next set of slides give you a little bit of an insight as to what that looks like in terms of the steps that we would follow. Now, Wes Salisbury here, who's joining me here today, is going to actually demonstrate that using a sample system just in a few minutes. This is just kind of an introduction to some of the power of Collaborate in terms of what it can do within your organization. All right, so snapshot of that graph that's in the center of the screen. Okay, there it is, and we can annotate the dashboard element, and then if you see off to the right where the Collaborate social feed was coming through, is now that snapshot is now part of the communication dialogue between the CFO and the controller here in this example. So very, very powerful kinds of communication, just going beyond textual information. Wes has quite a few other examples how we can take Collaborate and transcend beyond just textual communication and introduce things like snapshots off of our dashboard, as well as introducing files that we can attach to our communication and URLs. And he'll get into that a little bit later so that you can see that. Now, before I get into showing you how in the world do we set up Collaborate inside of your system, and you'll find this to be fairly easy to be done. So, setting up Collaborate. This is something that administrative status user in the system, a full administrative status user in the system, can turn on the Collaborate feature within your Intacct system. The subscription location menu selection is under Company, called Subscriptions. And this screen that you're looking at is just a little hard to see because of the size of the image of the menu. But once you get into subscription, you're going to see an awful lot of buttons representing other products or other features that can be added to your system. So the only care and caution that I ask out of you here is that just don't simply go in and start hitting a lot of buttons. There will be a message saying that, by the way, if you turn on such and such feature, you may be charged additional on your subscription fee. But you can see that the Intacct Collaborate button is there. And once you select that, there will be a message that will be stating that there could potentially be fees attached to turning this on. Intacct Collaborate is at no extra charge, so you can skip past that message after hitting this button. Once you've done that, there will be a agreement that you'll sign that you will use the Collaborate system in accordance with Intacct's usage, and you agree to do that, before you come to this screen. This is the only screen that you will come to that will have anything to do with actually setting up Collaborate within your system. There really is no other place that you need to go in terms of setting up Collaborate as a module. Now, there will be places where you will identify people within the system that are going to be using Collaborate and some of what is going to be referred to as their profile. But the only thing that has to do with configuration, and if you recall when we installed your Intacct system, we went through setup options with each one of the modules. You can consider this as being a setup option for Collaborate. So the first question that is being asked here is, how do you want to use the Salesforce chatter? Is it only for Intacct only? And you can translate that into understanding this is for turning on Intacct collaboration. Should you own Salesforce, that second radio button would be the one that you would select if you wanted to connect Salesforce with Intacct and use Collaborate and Salesforce together conjunctively. So for most of you, at least where my knowledge is about those of you who are attending, the first radio button is Intacct only is what you would select. The contact information here is really coming from the company setup. We're going to be using a sample company today by the name of Qubit. There's the address, so it's doubtful that there's anything that you would need to fill in there. It is required, but as far as the contact information is concerned, if it's any different than what you see here, you can override that. Now, interestingly enough, down here at the bottom of the screen is the users. The users that we're going to exclude from the use of Collaborate. This is the only place that you will have to exclude users that you would prefer not using the Collaborate feature within Intacct for those users who are identified as Intacct users within the system. Anyone not listed here would be automatically approved to be using the Intacct Collaborate system. You can go back in and update this should matters change in the future, and it would be simply going back to subscriptions, clicking on the Collaborate button where this screen would reappear and allow you to make changes. Once you save that, the next screen that will come up is that you will see that Collaborate will be introducing itself to you. Now, there's three buttons, three choices that you can make here. Learn more, start collaborating, or continue on with Intacct. I would encourage you to hit the Learn More button because that will open up a YouTube that will give you a little more background and maybe some additional information about the usage of Intacct and perhaps a rehearse of what you've learned today. Or you could go in and you could start collaborating, and this would mean that you could just start in and start collaborating with individuals within your organization, or you could go back to the Intacct menu and continue on with your work. All right, let's talk about some nuts and bolts about the Intacct Collaborate that I want you to keep in mind as you're looking through this, and especially while Wes takes you through some real-life sample examples within the system. So there's things that we're going to have to pay particular attention to over and beyond the setup of Intacct. One is identifying the Collaborate people, and that is that these are people within the organization who fall outside of the denied use list that we saw a little bit earlier that are potential people that we can collaborate with. Each one of those folks will have a profile, and this is under user preferences. And under user preferences, having to do with Collaborate is a section that will allow you to upload your picture if you care to do that, and also to control some of what Intacct Collaborate can do. So for those who may not necessarily be in the system and away from their desk for whatever reason, and when Intacct collaboration messages are coming and coming from other individuals using Intacct, how do we notify you? Well, we're going to go back into email. So the Collaborate has the ability to also communicating with you through email and giving you a link back into the system to continue on with the collaborative message. So Intacct has really gone through some great strides here to making sure that people who are in see the messages that are coming to them. For those people who happen to be temporarily out of the system for whatever reason and still need to be notified of certain important matters and messages, they have that ability to being able to turn that on in their profile. We can set up groups. So groups can either be public or either private. So the only kind of security that we can really narrow down on to specific individuals who we may not want to see our dialogue and our conversation is setting up a group that would be considered as private. Groups that are public are those type of groups where individuals can add themselves to the group should they want to get in on the dialogue. There are followings. So if you are not necessarily being communicated with, you can actually say, I want to kind of follow along with this dialogue and making sure that I have access to it so I can see whatever is being posed, whatever is being decided, whatever is being understood. I can also feel as educated about that matter as those that are involved directly in the communication. We can also include files in our collaboration and also URLs, so pointing other people to websites that might be information important for them to know as we are trying to describe and help them understand what is it that we're trying to convey. And then I mentioned a little earlier that we have the Collaborate dashboards and snapshots. You saw a little bit of that a little earlier. All right, I'm going to turn over the conversation that I'm having with you to Wes Salisbury. Again, he's exclusive Intacct system engineer. He has a lot to show you here within a company by the name of Qubit. Wes, let's wow them a little bit.
Let's wow them a little bit?
All right.
All right. So as Dave mentioned, my name is Wes Salisbury. I'm an Intacct consultant here at Maynard Costarison. And I'm going to be showing you some of the some real-life situations in which you would use Collaborate. So I have a couple of different instances of Intacct open here in the Qubit company. I have one login under Carla Grace, and one under Dina DeLuca, and then one under Dave Caldwell. As Dave mentioned, there's an area for you to set up in your preferences to give yourself a certain appearance when you are in Collaborate. And the way that you would access this is, while being logged in, going under the Company tab and clicking up My Preferences. Alternatively, you could also go up into your name in the upper right corner when you're logged in and click My Preferences. So let's scroll down until we see an area that says Collaborate Profile. And at this point, we can you can configure a profile picture for yourself, so you can differentiate between yourself and other people more easily. So this is Dave's picture here, and I'm also going to show you the pictures of Dina and Carla. So in our conversations that we have in Collaborate, we clearly know who is who. So here's Dina, and here's Carla. Also under your Collaborate profile, under your preferences, is you can decide when you want email notifications, and these email notifications will be sent to your email that's set up under your user profile. And you can decide whether or not you want to receive emails when someone posts on your profile page or comments on any of the posts that you follow, posts or comments on a record you follow, or does a call-out mention to you in a post or comment. And I'm going to show you later on how those work. So to begin here, let's go ahead and go to Dina's page and say that Dina had a question in regards to this Staples bill out there. All right, so this was a Staples bill. It was for $250 and for office supplies. Well, it appears like it's quite old, so Dina is wondering, hey, why is this still in the system? So Dina can post something such as this saying, why is this still out here? It's quite old. So under the post option right here, we can click share, and that post will become part of that invoice record. And there we have Dina's post right here. The Collaborate also gives us the ability to comment or like this post. If you want to make sure that Dina knows that you saw this post, you could hit like, or you can make a comment on it. So let's go ahead and go over to Carla's page. And let's just refresh this real quick. Because a post was made in an area that Carla has permissions to access, that post is going to be generated inside of her collaboration center. And if we go up here into the upper right corner and hover over our little speech bubble up here, it'll give us a number as to how many unread messages we have. So since Carla notices that Dina made a post on a record, we can go ahead and click on that link, and it will bring us directly to the record that's being posted to. So Carla, she can make a comment saying, "I'm not so sure about this. We should ask Dave." And then we can make a reference to Dave, a direct call out to Dave. Let's go to Dave here. And let's say Dave wanted to keep tabs on this record in particular. So we're going to have Dave follow that record. I'm going to have Dina make that post. And I'm going to refresh this page. I have Dave's email open here. So because Dave has that configured under his profile, he receives notifications when a record that he is following receives a post. So you can click Show Details, and Dave can immediately access the record that they're talking about. So that's what those settings under the user configuration do. It determines what you want to receive email notifications for.
Hey, Wes, I just want to add something here. The email notification that went to Dave really would serve well if Dave were out of the office and perhaps monitoring his email. He could monitor that email, click that link, and that would take him back into Intacct so that he could at least continue on with the dialogue.
Absolutely, and a really good usage of this would be to call out to someone who active in overseeing operations, but isn't usually logged into Intacct all the time. So because of that, you can have someone who's not in Intacct very often receive these messages and access these records.
Now, if Dave were already inside of Intacct, he would still get the email message, but he would also see the dialogue that came up in his control center, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. So we're still logged in as Dave, and we have this window open from when Dave clicked on that link in the email. And then Dave can say something like, "This probably shouldn't be here, but I will dig into it and let you know." So Dave gives both Carla and Dina assuredness that he's looking into it, and he will let them know what the resolution would be. Once a resolution is found, Dave can go back into this record, and this exact same conversation will still be here, and he can give them instructions as to, should we just reverse this out, or if it actually is an outstanding item, or what. So that's a real basic example of what you can do in regards to tagging transactions in Collaborate. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to dig into a couple other functions that you can use in Collaborate, which can be really useful. So file, for example. So instead of posting a text post on a particular item, you can attach a file. So let's say that you have a particular journal entry out here, and say that we're going to the general journal. So let's say, go ahead and view this. There's a whole lot of entries in here. There's a whole lot of lines. What if we wanted to have a decent record as to, where's our work paper for this? So under Dave here, we can say, well, first he can post something asking, can we work paper for this? So that post will be shared, and we'll refresh this under Dina's page. So Dina will see this under her Collaboration Center, and we can go to that GL batch.
Now, she could have commented right there, Wes, is that correct, instead of going to the journal entry, if she didn't need to do that?
Yeah, if she was already aware of what journal entry it was referencing, yeah, she could have made a comment to that post there.
Okay.
So what Dina can do is say, yes, I can attach it now. So she hits that comment right there. But then what Dina can do is she can post a file. Now let's say that Dina has a so let's say that she can just import this general ledger report and click share once it uploads. Dina can just post file on there, and you can either preview it or you can download the file, and this file remains part of that record until forever, until it's deleted.
So this file could have been something that Dina may have only had on her hard drive that was really important to answer Dave's question, right? Mm-hmm. So instead of emailing it to him, all she needed to do is join back in the conversation and upload the file, which has now officially been attached to the journal entry as well.
Correct.
So how's Dave going to take a look at this file?
Well, first of all, there's a couple different ways that Dave can access this. So Dave can either go into his email and view details on the post that Dina sent, or he can just go to his Collaboration Center and click on the message that he wants to respond to, and he can immediately see that, oh hey, Dina commented saying yes, I can attach that now, and then he'll also see that Dina posted that file to us. So now Dave can now download that file. That's just one of the many ways that you could utilize the file posting function here. In addition to this, one of the processes is when they receive an invoice and they enter it into Intacct, your clerks must attach the paper copy to that record. Say that someone in the accounting team found that, oh hey, this doesn't have the paper invoice attachment, so they can go to that invoice that they need it for, make a post asking, hey, I need this invoice attached, and then whoever has access to modify invoices can import that attachment and attach it.
It's also shared to them as well, being able to see it.
Yeah, correct. If they have permissions to access the type of record.
Okay. Yeah. Wes, one of the other things about transaction messaging here and attaching the dialogue to a transaction, let's say, for example, an individual inside of Intacct only has access to accounts payable and not to general ledger. Mm-hmm. Now, we said that the messaging is really kind of being broadcast out to certain individuals or groups of individuals or to the company as a whole, but anyone who has been identified as an Intacct Collaborate user can see those messages and also perhaps drill down on transactions, with the exception if they don't have permission to see those transactions, Collaborate will not override that security. Is that right, Wes?
That is correct. So let's say you have an employee user who pretty much they're just in the business of entering in their time if you're using a time and expenses module. Even though Collaborate is pervasive in the sense where it flows through all modules, that employee user who is just in the business of entering in expense reports and only has permissions to put in expense reports, they are not going to be able to see anything in any other area in the system, like accounts payable or general ledger.
And including the dialogue that might have been attached to transactions they don't have permissions to seeing.
That is correct.
Okay.
That is correct.
All right. Well, that's a really important matter in the system, because we wouldn't want Collaborate to override the security that's built into the system and reveal maybe some real important information that wouldn't otherwise they would be privy to.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. Well, good. I'm glad we have that ability.
Yeah. So there's one final type of post that you can make on a particular record, and that is through a link. So let's say you read a news article, or you take a look at the price of, like, the price forecast of something, and you want to link it to a particular record that's affected by it. So let's just go into accounts payable here. I have a post that I like to reference, and it's a report on the short-term energy outlook of, just energy prices in general for the upcoming periods. So let's say we go into accounts payable here, and I'm just going to enter in a bill really quick. Let's see, in Qubit. In Qubit we don't really have a clear electricity vendor, but we'll just say, so just pretend Regal Services is an energy provider, and let's just enter in some basic information here. And this is going to be in US dollars. And we're going to put that under utilities, transaction amount. We'll just give a quick allocation there and post. All right, so we have our energy bill out here. And let's say Carla wanted to make the rest of the team alert as to what utility expenses are going to look like in the future, now that we're coming up on the winter months. Carla can click on the link type and insert. We're going to copy this URL over into the link URL, and we can give it a link name. And we can say short-term energy outlook. And after that's identified, Carla can make a post and say, please read this article. It provides helpful information for the upcoming month's energy expenditures, and share. So this post is going to be broadcast out to all the people who have access to this particular record. So whoever has access to it can just click on it and read what Carla was referencing. So those are really all the different types of posts that you can create. There's just one more quick feature I'd like to show you all that Dave mentioned earlier, and that is the snapshot. So what I've done is I've attached a Collaborate feed to my dashboard right here. And in this feed, it's going to show you all of the posts that you have access to read. So if you're the type of person who you rely heavily on dashboards, when you log in, you can just take a look at your Collaborate feed right there as you're looking at your financials and other reports. So under here, when the Collaborate feed is placed on a dashboard, it receives this additional setting called Snapshot. So we're going to click Snapshot, and it's going to highlight all of these different reports and records that are able to take a snapshot of. And the way that this can be useful is, let's say that you wanted to send a report that you're seeing exactly how it is to the rest of your team. This eliminates some of the guesswork and steps that you have to take to, make sure you have the right report parameters set in order for them to get the right report. This way, you can just click on a report and it just sends it the way it is to someone. So we have a revenue by item and customer report down here. So I'm going to click on this. All right. So in my Collaborate feed now, I have a snapshot that I just took of that report. What I can do now is I can say something about the snapshot, and saying our sales a bit heavy for our top 3 in comparison to the rest. We have to get more balanced. Then you can identify who you want to send it to. So you can either send it to people who follow you or a particular group. So my computer here isn't picking up the group that Dina is a part of. But let's say that Dina, she has a pretty close relationship with a lot of their sales folks, and say a bunch of their salespeople are following Dina because they're highly interested in what she has to say. So she can send this to my followers and hit share.
Now, if the accounting group, if that would have been available to you there, Wes, it was a private group, so that snapshot would have only gone to that group, and only that group would have had access to that information.
Correct. If you reference a particular, if you reference a private group in any of your posts, it's it's only going to be available to see by members of that group.
Okay.
Yeah.
Real good.
So, just for an example here, I just want to show you the ability to download that exact same report that Dina saw.
Very nice. Very, very handy. It takes some of the work out of the individual who's a recipient of this information. They don't have to go back inside of Intacct and try to reproduce the report.
Correct, because that'll definitely take some time, and plus it opens the door for user error or miscommunication.
All right, real good. Okay, well, Wes, is there anything else that would be important? Oh, by the way, that this snapshot only works with Firefox and Google Chrome at this time.
Yes, at this time, that's those are the only two internet browsers that work with it so far.
Okay, so we're waiting for Internet Explorer to get approved on that approved list, and then we should hopefully see the snapshot appear and being available. But for right now, for Internet Explorer users, Snapshot is not available yet.
That is correct.
Okay, all right, real good. Wes, one more thing that I'd like to show our group here today is some help that they can get should they decide to turn on Intacct and they'd like to go back and review some of the online help. So if you would go to the help menu out to the right there and upper and go to, I'm going to try following along, help on this page. At least this is just one way of doing it. If you look down on the list on the left, there should be a selection there called Collaborate.
Yep, Intacct Collaborate.
Intacct Collaborate. So if you select that, there's a number of hyperlinks in that main part of the inner window there that will take you through and describe a lot of what Wes has showed you today. So please use that. I think there's a PDF that's published out on the community that also provides some supplemental information about the use of Intacct as well. So that's available for those of you who've gotten into community and began to use that. But that's Intacct, right, Wes?
Yeah.
We're certainly excited about what Intacct has done here in opening up a means of communication throughout their software. Wes, on our last slide there, I think tells folks how to get in touch with us. So for those of you who have any questions about today's webinar, we have a phone number you can call to get in touch with any of our team on Intacct here. Wes and I will be available and be happy to take your call, or else you can email to support asking a few questions, and we would certainly be available. Hey, everyone, have a great day, and again, we'd be happy to help you out with any questions you have. Thanks so much.